I am going to hand you over now to John Boulding, the CMO of the Vox Group, who is going to talk to us about innovations in cultural experience. So please give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you and good morning, everyone. Today we stand amidst what is really a digital revolution that I believe is reshaping the whole world of arts and culture, and broader than that, tourism too. And guiding the future, the title of our presentation, innovations in cultural experiences, is a topic that sort of ignites my passion anyway. I'm sure the passion of many people in the industry, and it fuels a lot of excitement at the moment because we're seeing everywhere about technology, AI, and much, much more. So this is a remarkable journey that we're all on, where art and history and technology converge. And that's changing the way and reshaping the way that we engage with our cultural heritage. And let's understand today that, of course, there are billions of people around the world who are connected by the internet's fabric and its ubiquity, and social media and cloud computing and smartphones have changed the face of the way that, quit that naughty thing. Traditional visitor paradigms are completely changing. And along with culture and arts and tourism beyond and much, much more, this is the world's fastest growing sector in economic terms. And people are seeking different experiences today. And that's really where this is all coming from. People are driven by authenticity, by cultural immersion and sustainable practices. So we want to explore a little bit of that today. This is not a presentation about Vox as such. I'll talk about it at the end, but this is a presentation just looking at the rising demand for unique perspectives and experiences that allow exploring and engaging with a digital lens to be all the more compelling than it's been before. So let's start to look at how this can work. Excuse me, this is not moving on, guys. One sec. There we go. What's happening, I think, is a behavioral shift. Now, this happened in the pandemic, as we all understand, because the behaviors that were taking place there became habitual. It was such a long epidemic. And the lockdowns was a catalyzer to move people into online platforms and into technology. And whether it was grandparents sitting at home chatting to their grandkids, using mobile technology as the means of doing that, whether they were scanning QR codes in, Eat Out to Help Out or whatever it was, all of a sudden, technology became the front of everything that we were doing. And visitors today, because of that, now expect so much more from their entire experience. As they do on every journey that they make in life, whether it's a trip to the shops, tourism, or arts and culture. It's right through the fabric of society. People want to be fluid and they want to be connected. And the crux of the transformation lies in this newfound expectations that they're accessible and in real time with flexibility and personalization. Those are all factors that come together. And people seek to curate their own experiences today as well. It's all right, us curating for them, but they want to curate within that, down to the finest detail very often, from planning to execution, and very often enabled by apps that they're using every day. Reports in terms of travel and tourism and arts and culture show that there's a 30% uptick in acceptance year on year as we're going forward right now. We talked about numbers before. 2.3 billion people are connected globally. So it's a pretty big area. And this trajectory of digital tools will shape the industry's future, that's for sure. And why is this all important then? It's because our world is evolving. And so are museums and galleries and heritage sites too. We stand at a crossroads, really, where tradition meets innovation. So let's explore some of that. As we delve into the wonders of multimedia guides and immersive narratives and technology generally, this is a brushstroke in a way that enhances a masterpiece, the whispered translation that we get that bridges language barriers too. And it's the virtual portal that transports us across time and space. So whether it's augmented reality or whether it's wearable devices, we're witnessing this renaissance as we go forward. So we're not just preserving artifacts, we're crafting memories as well. Let's take a look at the evolving technical landscape in arts and culture particularly. Museums today, as we all understand, are seamlessly blending very often visual, auditory and interactive elements. And audio guides and touch screens and digital displays are enhancing visitor experiences in many, many places now, along with multilingual capabilities that cater to diverse audiences, breaking language barriers. So with a discrete audio guide, whether it's a neck-held one like this, or we use very, very small ones in certain circumstances, or multimedia guides, you can hear the artist's whispers, the historical context and the hidden details. And the touch screens that people are using now allow visitors to explore artifacts in ways that they couldn't just a few years ago. So we can step into ancient civilizations, walk through cities, or explore lost horizons, or whatever it might be, through VR as well. And this massive impact on visitor engagement is changing satisfaction levels, and you can see it through the statistics. They speak volumes, really. Visitor engagement metrics have soared through the use of technology. Longer dwell times, increased repeat visits, and positive feedback as well is changing. Testimonials echo sentiments of awe and connection and newfound appreciation. It's just interesting to read some of the feedback that comes from museums today compared to just a short while ago. So technology is not a tool, it's a bridge, really, connecting us between the two. So what about the guides that we have in museums? I'm talking physical guides here, people. Very often we come across museums ourselves as Vox. We come to museums and introduce some of our technology. And the common language is that, well, the guides prefer the older technology. They like the idea of being able to talk directly to their guests. You know, a technology will ruin the experience, and huddling is more effective than having people spaced out where they might be losing touch with the person who's speaking. Close-up provides a better connection with the guides. That's often what we hear. But those visitor dynamics have changed. And again, that's the COVID factor. Before, with a huddle, it was common, and the guide could stand and spit over everybody as they were chatting, and no one batted an eyelid. But today, of course, people prefer to be spaced. And it's not just about the health and sanitization side of things, it's also about the experience. If you can wander at will, looking at artifacts as you're listening to your guide and getting that in-depth perspective, it changes the effect of the tour, and it's so much more engaging. And of course, it's not just devices, it's smartphone technology can do that now as well, to communicate to suitably distanced guests using either internet, Wi-Fi or radio as we're using today. There's a lot of regulation springing up now as well, and this is another really interesting factor. Yesterday morning, I was working on a project for Venice. I think probably you've read in the newspapers, Venice is now really clamping down on over-tourism. They've introduced a visitor tax, which is €5 per day per visitor visiting Venice. And that's collected as you enter Venice. Group sizes for touring around in Venice are now limited to a maximum of 25 people. And the last point, and this is very relevant for Vox, is that they've just introduced at the end of this month, 1st of June it starts, no group of larger than 10 people can be given commentary without using radio devices, which is perfect for us. We've opened an office in Venice, I can tell you, and we've set up a shop there. So we're okay. But this is where it's going. And the regulation on megaphones has changed. You can't use those, since 2019, you can't use those in Venice. But all around the world, this type of technology is being banned. And it's because it's insulting, it's disruptive, it diminishes the overall enjoyment of arts and culture. And it's not just the people on the tour, it's the other visitors to a museum who, you know, if a guide is shouting to their group, it's destroying the atmosphere in the whole place. We'll talk about this just a little bit later, but regulation is again another catalyst that's moving all of this forward as we go into 2024 and 2025 in the future. So cultural guiding in a digital age is really different. we know a lot about technology now that's already out there and working very well, like infrared, for example, electromagnetic radiation that's used very effectively in an institution, a gallery, a museum, where you're trying to have visitors moving through an experience and then watching videos that are lip syncing with the sound that they're hearing as they pass by. That's infrared technology mainly. Bluetooth technology, BLE technology, Bluetooth low energy. This is beacons, and when you enter a room, you hear new audio and so on. Projection mapping is turning historical narratives into immersive visual spectacles, and we see this in many great exhibitions now. And binaural audio as well, to get that soundscape happening with the voices that you hear as you're walking through of the people who were there at that particular time in a certain scene. These innovations are transforming the guiding experience today. They're already here, of course, and happening, and making it more engaging and more memorable, and changing visitor expectations. And that's the thing, because people are getting this now in some of the bigger, more advanced institutions. It's something that has to come everywhere else. Otherwise, the experiences won't match, and people will be expecting more when they come. So I think this whole area, let's break it open a little bit. The previous session was talking about AI, and this is truly important. I just locked in yesterday to ChatGPT 4.0, the new one that's just come out, and that's pretty incredible stuff, actually. We use it a lot at Vox, not for everyday interpretation. We have our specialist area of Sycamore, which is arts and culture, interpretation, multimedia devices, that sort of thing. And that's all done in curation with the curator of a museum and so on, and written with special writers, translators, and so on. But in general tourism terms, which is another sector that we're in, I can tell you AI is already being used very, very often now for writing stories, for audio creation, with very, very effective voices. And it's still at a general level, but it's really, really strongly in there. So AI in terms of itinerary planning is enhancing your itinerary planning, both interior in buildings. You can work out routes and explain things very, very well, but also around a city or around an open exhibition, for example. Operational efficiency. AI is streamlining operational aspects of visitors, from booking processes to customer services and so on. Live voice translation is really the holy grail of where some of this is going for multimedia groups that are coming in, or multilingual groups or visitors, individual visitors too. But to be able to hear a guide with automatic translation is sort of the holy grail of where some of this is sitting. It's not there yet, and there are various reasons for that. The issues are the bottlenecked supply of microchips, and NVIDIA has a massive problem at the moment, a backlog in trying to create enough chips to power this AI revolution. And it's not just stopping at chips, it goes far beyond that. If you listen to the guys that are working in OpenAI or whatever, the problem they all have is essentially electricity and major mainframe equipment. They just can't provide enough, and it's going to take trillions of dollars, not billions, trillions of dollars, to get the world up to the level where AI voice translation is fully working without latency and with natural voices and that sort of thing. So you get an instant that's still some way off to be a perfect product. But AI is really moving forward. Wearable devices, of course, are here and becoming more effective. There is an argument that says that virtual reality is not what you necessarily want if you're looking at artifacts, perhaps. I think augmented reality can work extremely well in that area, but certainly wearables are encompassing smart glasses, wristbands, augmented reality headsets, and they're developed, of course, with many different functionalities to enhance the visitor experiences. There's benefits in wearable devices, personalisation. It can help track routes and exhibits that a visitor's shown interest in and suggest other items to view. All of this can be programmed. Personalisation improves visitor satisfaction very often by tailoring that experience, as we said before. Accessibility, discussing with guests or visitors as they're moving around the cultural experiences that they're seeing, including people with disabilities. We can highlight routes and things that they can benefit from, and technology can act as a bridge in those areas. The British Museum's offering smart glasses, I know, for example, that guide visitors through certain exhibits. And feedback is very strong on it. I think one of the things that you also get is real-time data. By using devices, you get data. You get a lot of data that can be used, and we'll talk about data later, that can be used very effectively in future planning to optimize layouts, exhibit placement, and even marketing strategies can come from the data that shows what people are doing. There are challenges and considerations, privacy concerns, for example, but certainly from a Vox perspective, I can tell you that we collect no personal data from anybody. So we're totally GDPR compliant in everything that we do. It really depends what you're collecting from those guests, but the data is really powerful stuff. Gamification is another big thing right now, of course, and there are many exhibitors here who specialize in that area. Gamification in the context of cultural institutions, of course, has to be balanced, doesn't it, really? Incorporating game design elements into non-game context to enhance the user engagement and motivation and retention is effective when it correlates with learning outcomes. That's the point. We sometimes get requests for gamification, and we can provide that, but it's always very much, our advice is always to balance it very, very carefully. The importance of it is, of course, engagement. That's the big thing, particularly for visitors who are native digital users, which are young people. They love using this type of technology, and it can make learning much more enjoyable and more memorable for them. And so they come away fully engaged and have learned so much more. Implementing it is, again, many institutions, Smithsonian, for example, have done great work in that area, and quests and visitors solving puzzles as part of their exhibits is a really popular area. Scavenger hunts, reward systems, all of these are great ways of using that technology. The tools and the platforms that are used, mainly mobile devices on their own smartphones very often, sometimes with handheld devices that have got touchscreens, of course. That's really important. There are costs involved with it, and if you use technology that's in-house technology that you've bought or leased or whatever you've done, then there are always the replenishment issues and the legacy issues of older equipment, and time can pass. So leasing sometimes is a better option where devices get replaced and always updated. That's a whole big area that's important for us. Technology can bring new efficiencies, certainly. That's the other big thing in an institution. In many, many areas. One of them is the side of guiding. More efficient guiding systems help manage visitor flows. Vox, for many years, we set it all up, actually, in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. We set up what we called the Dome Wi-Fi system, which was a router system right around the building that tracked where visitors were in the building. And that was done, again, GDPR compliant, just by tracking the smartphones. We knew the smartphones were logging into the router system where you could pinpoint where the crowds were, which allowed people, and they use this in Barcelona, actually, around near the Sagrada Familia, in the whole streets around are mapping where everybody is. And it's really interesting because then you can plan and you can direct people to different areas at different times. So digitization is efficient in that area, very much so, reducing congestion, optimizing the use of space with institutions, and helping to distribute visitors more evenly across exhibits will improve access and exclusivity, really, I think, as well. The other side of technology is it can support some of those sensitive issues that are very hard to deal with in a normal situation. Funding is a good one. Today, it's so much harder to get the funding needed in an institution. But if you're using technology, part of the backstory that they're reading about or listening to as they're traveling around can help explain that funding. Offering insights into why things have changed in the terms of funding. And they can be offered things there that can help fund too, like special offers, value adds, ancillary sales, or exclusive access to certain exhibits. You can direct people to the cafes or to the shops or whatever through the technology that they're using to actually learn about their visit, generating additional revenue, which is the big key there. Another very important area is ethical practices and transparency. That can be discussed as well through the narrative that you create within the devices. Cultural repatriation is another one. That constant question of should the Elgin marbles be somewhere else? That can be explained and addressed and understood better because people passively can listen to the story. They don't have to go and seek the story. It can be delivered to them, and it comes as part of a natural thing, explaining colonial times and whatever the background is to any particular sensitive cultural issue. So you get a better nuanced understanding of the role of museums in galleries in preserving and displaying the items that they're displaying. We talked about ratings before. It's very important. There's no doubt that in this new dynamic we're in, that visitors today will look less favourably on institutions that fail to provide up-to-date guiding systems because their expectation is for that now. And they rate institutions that have good systems much higher in post-experience surveys and reviews than they do others. And we see this, as I've said, because of Sycamore, our company for arts and culture, and also through Vox, we see that very strongly. So taking advantage of technology in that sense is really important. We mentioned data before. We've spoken a lot about data and digital. It's invaluable, and it's not just what people are looking at or how they're doing it, but you can rank the importance. You can see heat maps if you've got both internal and external. If you've got, cultural institutions like Pompeii, for example, we do a lot of work there. So we can map with heat maps where everybody is and what they've been doing and see the different, you can break it down, slice and dice, of course, by nationality, by time of day, by all sorts of factors that will give you really close insights. It's a roadmap to adapting to the evolving needs and the preferences of travellers so that you can act nimbly and effectively to make changes to the way we're working. Sustainability and technology, again, this is something that's intensifying everywhere. I watched the program last night. It was an old panorama, but it was on carbon offsets, actually. Some of you may have seen that one. Very interesting. There's a lot of greenwashing going on around the world, and consumers today are understanding that things aren't what it seems. But it is actually quite easy and simple to focus on being green. And as Vox, we've done that. When we deliver things today, we deliver in cardboard boxes. The earphones that you're using, the blue earphones, they're recyclable. We collect them back. They can be kept for your own use, but we will take them back and recycle them sustainably. And batteries are recycled and so on. Smartphone technology is really important too, because smartphone is the circular economy. The phone already exists. So if a customer is able to use their own smartphone with your app downloaded on it to deliver the experience that they're looking for, that's completely green and completely circular. So it's a very easy part of this conscientious approach to creating a low carbon footprint. And manufacturing is another big area. We used to manufacture all our equipment in China. We now manufacture only in Europe, which is our main market. So we're distributing and delivering locally rather than long haul. And we're always, if anybody ever wants to come and see the Vox offices, you're welcome to come in and see what we do, by the way. We're in North London here in the UK. I'm going to give you a case study, actually, on something else, which is, again, about guiding in institutions. What we're using today, this device here, is a device that we use in many institutions. We use them mainly for internal in buildings. We've also got devices that work all around the world, of course, externally and internally. But we've got many institutions. This is just a sample within the UK of major institutions that are using what you're using right now for their tour groups that go around. And we have a special project that we introduced 2 years ago, which is pay as you go. So there is no charge for having our devices in your premises. We deliver and set up for you a huge stock of devices. Sometimes it depends on the institution, but hundreds of devices that are available there for your guided groups. And whenever your tour guides want to guide a group, they can lock into that, and there's just a per use price for that. And all of these institutions are using us right now. It's a really effective way of helping your institution with groups. There are many places where this is compulsory, actually. In Italy, in the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi, it's compulsory to use devices there. It's the same in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And as we've said, in Venice, it's very extensive, and it's happening here. It's starting to roll through institutions here that guides must use devices if they're with their group. So think about that. What it does is improve the group guiding experience. We've got this is the National Gallery. We've got great feedback there as well, because it means that the groups can guide much more closely, in the sense of lack of disturbance for other guests. Other guests are not disturbed, is what I'm trying to say. And the refurbishment that's going on there has been a really big part of helping this flow through. The devices that we have are, you're looking at this one here, it's green or red. The other one is one we call Vox VDR, that's used very often for tour groups that are touring around in Europe as well, but we've got all sorts of little devices. Look, the conclusion of this, really, where I was coming to today, is that what it's all about is embracing the future together. Technology companies and arts and cultural institutions. We've seen that this growth of business is happening. It's bouncing back very, very fast. And together, we can navigate this not just as participants, but as pioneers, because we're all pioneers when it comes to technology. And together we can lead this transformative era in arts and culture to make sure that the change is constant and it's embracing everything that visitors are looking for as they go forward. We're here by your side should you ever need us. And of course, we'd be very, very pleased to talk to you. Just a quick word on Vox Group so you know who we are. We see ourselves as a steward of change, if you like. We have a commitment to quality, to innovation and to sustainability, and reliability and service, a very big part of it. We've got 3 parts to our business. There's Vox Group, Sycamore, which is arts and culture for major institutions around the world, tourism services for the brand of Vox, and Vox City, which is a B2B to C experience brand, delivering package experiences and so on. We do pretty big numbers around the world, and we have a huge range of equipment as well, of all different types. So really, that's where I wanted to finish up. I think we can finish up, and if anybody's got any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them, or try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a whole 10 minutes for questions, and there's loads of you in the audience, so I know that there's going to be a lot of questions. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask John? Just pop your hand up. We've got a roving microphone that will come round to you. We've got a lady at the back there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gretchen.
Hi.
I work for Magic Leap. We create AR headsets. I was wondering, what are the blockers that you see for augmented reality to be adopted in museums?
Sorry, what are the?
Oh, sorry, what?
What did you say?
Just speak into the mic a little bit louder.
Yeah.
That'd be
Okay.
great. Thank you.
I work for Magic Leap, an augmented reality headset company. And what do you see are the blockers for museums to adopt augmented reality greater, like for headsets or for like visitor experiences?
For adoption?
Yeah, for greater adoption.
What-
And
what's
for
the
greater
blocker-
adoption,
what's
yeah.
the blocker for adoption from
Right,
organisations.
yeah. Okay, got it, right. Well, one of the blockers, there's several blockers, actually. One of the biggest is hearts and minds. If an institution introduces technology, it's got to come from the top and be driven so that the entire organization understands what it's for, how it works, and why it's being used. And then that can flow through down to everybody. And when there's training sessions and so on with business partners or other institutions, for visitors, for guides and so on, that can flow through. And that will help for sure create greater adoption, because if people understand it and know why they're using it, then they'll use it and they'll explain that to the end user as well. The other one is availability. It's making the product available. And I think that is a really important thing to pre-sell, particularly if you're using smartphone technology. With a visitor's own smartphone, it's really important that they know that before they come, that when they arrive, that this is something that they might want to take advantage of. So telling them things like come with your smartphone charged up, make sure that you've got your earphones with you, for example. That's on the smartphone side. On headsets and so on, availability, making it there, making it part of the ticket is the other thing. We know, and I know this from our Sycamore business, that when an institution sells the headsets as an extra, the take-up is about 20%. This is pretty broad brush, and of course it's different for every institution, but let's say 20%. But when it's included in a ticket, then the take-up's 80%. It's vastly different. So to get the maximum value, and the maximum value for the institution too, really the secret is include it in the ticket and put the price of the ticket up a bit, amortize the cost, but put the price of the ticket up a bit. I mean, that's maybe the simplest answer. But
That was a great question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good
Do we have
question.
any other questions for John? Anyone? Oh, we've got a lady here with her hands up. Thank you.
Hi. Can you tell us a little bit more about the translation into other languages, please?
Yeah, so, well, I can tell you about Vox. I'm not sure how every company does it. So we have 3 levels of translation and creation. One is through Sycamore, which is the high level one, where we work with a museum. The museum tells us what they're looking for. The curator will work with our team to understand how to best present the content that's being created. And then that's written with copywriters, with your copywriters if necessary. We just work together and find the best route. And then we go to professional studios where professional translators, native language translators who are experts in an area will then translate to make sure that everything's done. That's the high level one. The second level is what we sort of generally call a tourism level. If you're looking for city highlights or for quick highlights for a highlight visit of a museum, then we can do that with our writers. You give us scripts if you need to. We can work from the script, or we can create the scripts, or whatever. We work together, but it's done at a level that's more of a faster level, if you like. It's faster, and we can do multilingual. We get the base language sorted out, translate 6 languages, and then give you the whole lot in 6 languages. Still done with studios, still done with artists, still done with copywriters and so on, people. And then the third level is AI. And this is coming forward very fast because it's very low cost and very quick. And it's actually pretty effective now. You really wouldn't know. I've got some example. I can't show you because I haven't linked it up, but it's very effective particularly for tourism, I would say, rather than arts and culture. But AI will write the copy, give it the basic facts that give the story you're trying to tell, what the audience is. It's the same as using ChatGPT, and it will create the script. That can then be fed to with APIs automatically, actually, through ChatGPT, or can go to specialist programs where you can choose the voice and so on. That will create the audio, and you can get the intonation, the accent, the tone, the age of the person that's speaking, all of those things. And then you can mix it with, automatically mix it with music to get the right tone. And it's like going to a studio. So yeah, it's interesting, very interesting.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else for John? We've got 5 more minutes of the session. Gentleman at the back.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question about the heat mapping technology. Just
Yep.
curious how that's being collected, and also how it's used on, say, a multi-level building where you have a museum with multiple floors. If you're just using geographic location, can you still dictate which floor that guest is on?
Yeah. So the heat maps are generated by. It depends on the use. In an external situation, I mentioned Pompeii, for example. In Pompeii, it's geotagged, so it's very easy, and the geotagging plots everything. But equally, the heat maps can be generated from consumer action within the app. So if they're visiting a certain thing that is then triggered either by Bluetooth or whatever it's triggered, BLE or whatever, or by personal action, because very often an institution has many ways of doing that inside the app, that triggers, and then you'll get the data from that. So then you can subdivide it by floors. Yeah, but it's an interesting area. And another area that I didn't discuss is geomagnetic navigation inside buildings. That's got some flaws. It's not fully there yet, but that's another area that allows tracking and so on. So,
Thank you very much.
okay, thanks.
Thanks for your question. Do we have any more for John? Anyone? I've got a few more minutes. No? Oh, well, I have a question for you, John.
Oh,
So
okay.
thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting. I'm keen to understand, of all of the technology that you offer, what have you seen the biggest uptake from cultural organisations in the last 12 months?
Yeah, the biggest uptake has been smartphone applications. Yeah, we have an app called Pop Guide Museum, which is a really simple app that allows visitors to download the visit onto their phone, and they can self-guide around. And I think that's because it's a low cost installation. You know, the app already exists. You don't have to build the app; it's there. It's just the content to flow in. The branding is your own, and it's pretty simple, straightforward. So that's this huge. It's 365% growth on that year on year. So it's massive, yeah.
So that's a really inexpensive way to get started on this journey.
For a small museum, for even a sort of a blacksmith workshop type thing, you could actually use it in a very small level or large. I mean.
Great. Thank you, John. Anyone else? No more questions. Okay, well, look, thank you all for coming along. John and the Vox Group are here all day. You are using their technology right now. So please talk to them, give them all the great feedback that they need. Go and have a chat with them if you do have any more questions for them. But please give John a very loud round of applause.
Thank you.